All right. Can everybody hear? It's right in your ear. Well, good evening, everyone. We're excited to have everybody here for especially for those of you who don't know, this is Andrew Green, our golf course architect at Bitterman and golf course architect for many others, which we'll learn about a lot of things this evening. This is our second go-around with this fireside chat, or non-fireside chat. It is August, so we're going to pretend like there's a fire back here. But we have a lot of good things to talk about tonight. Really going to let Andrew take the floor here. We're going to learn a little bit about what Andrew's up to. Talk about the recent renovation project at Bitterman, and obviously we'd love to have some time to do a little Q&A this evening. So, Andrew, we really want to thank you for your time coming here and joining us this evening. I know you're a busy man, so it's good to lasso you in here to the Bitterman Michener family for a little while and dive inside the mind of an architect. Maybe one can say a while now.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me. Thanks for coming out tonight. And looking forward to the evening very much. Bitterman being a very special place in my heart. Many moons ago, Mr. Wick and a few others took a big chance on me, and I will never forget that. And it certainly helped make me who I am.
Well, appreciate that. It's always good to have you back. I was talking to Dr. Solikoff earlier, and I was 22 years old when I first met you.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
We all had some more hair. We all had more hair back then.
Yeah, absolutely. My hairline was a little further down than what it's been.
Best hair.
But it's been a long-standing relationship, and we've seen a lot of things happen in the golf industry together and separately. But you've been up to a lot since that time frame. 2006, we were young men at that time. You've gone out on your own. You've come a long way. Tell us what you're up to these days. Where are you now?
Yeah, thanks. This week we kind of did a wrap-up of projects that we just have completed or in the growing process. So I was at Michener in Dallas. It's a Discovery Land project from early 2000s, and we just totally reinvented it. It'll open sometime this fall. So really excited about that, where that's coming along. And then I went to Florida and looked at two projects we just completed there, one in Bradenton and one in Naples. And so it's great to kind of see those projects that we just finished really growing in and coming along. I'm very excited. And then my primary project in the dirt right now is Interlochen in Minneapolis. And so if you don't know, that's where Bobby Jones won the 1930 US Open as part of the Grand Slam. And they're going to re-celebrate that in part with the Women's Open in 2030. And so we're very excited about that. Amazing piece of ground, Don Ross design, tremendous history. So that we're about 2/3 of the way done with that. I approved the last green for construction. Real quick back to that, just the technology's changed so much. I was just thinking when you said 2006, we used some really rudimentary equipment, but it was even a step further than what we had been using when we did the greens work here, where we really tried to protect your contours. There's a really good connection there. Sorry for the rabbit trail. And then in 2 weeks we'll start East Lake, right after the Tour Championship. So that is where Bobby Jones grew up. That's where he learned the game. So very proud to be a part of that. Mr. Cousins and his family have had a long-standing legacy of protecting that place. And so really looking forward to that journey. A big part of that project will be to embrace the original design of the course that gave us Jones. We found an aerial that the club had never seen before. And each hole had two greens, a summer green and a winter green. Very unique. A lot in the South had that, but unique as far as the way we think about golf today. So we actually tried to pick and choose kind of which green was cooler, more sense. So that'll be a very dramatic project, and then we will be done and back open for the 2024 Tour Championship. So a little bit of pressure.
I think you handle that pressure pretty well.
Thanks. Yeah,
That's got to be pretty exciting. Yeah, East Lake. Wow.
yeah, unbelievable. Goosebumps kind of moments. Very, very blessed, very fortunate. And Mr. Wick and I were catching up for a second here when we came in. Some of the lessons learned here, I think, have applied to a number of these great places, and it really helped me in that, you had an amazing Dick Wilson Foundation and tradition here, and the club was really founded for the love of the game. No other reason. So awesome. It's amazing. So if you take those two things, if you take a foundation that is so well put, and you take that passion for the game, you don't need bells and whistles and windmills and clowns' mouths. You just need good, solid ball to enjoy the game. And I think that's a huge lesson of your club and things that I've been able to utilize.
Pretty special. I'll tell you, the list of accomplishments and places you're in Inverness, Scioto, Congressional, Saucon Valley, Wannamoyset, just all over the place.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we want to talk about.
Okay.
Tell me about your experiences with Oak Hill, both during the construction and then leading up to the PGA Championship. We all saw you on TV.
Yeah, I'll get to the TV thing in a second. So Oak Hill was the first big course that that top, I don't know, 100, top 50, whatever. And again, kind of some lessons for here. The approach that I took in that interview process was, you've got these amazing Donald Ross drawings that he hand drew, and they're amazing. And there's things on here that no one else has. Why would you want to reinvent? Why would you want somebody to come in here and create their own vision when what you have is so good and it fits the property so well? And really, my whole interview consisted of sitting around a table a little bigger than the ones you're sitting at, and we just passed the hand-drawn drawings around the table. And we all looked at them, the committee, and just talked about it. I remember when I got the call for that job, I was like, well, number one, don't screw this up. But number two, that it was probably going to be a bit life-altering. And then the project actually got delayed a full year because the club got the 2019 senior PGA. And so the entire project shifted. That caused a little bit of drama. And then they didn't want to lose their golf course. No one wants to lose their golf course to do a project. So we actually shut down at the end of August, and all the greens were grassed in roughly 6 weeks. It was the fastest project that I'd ever been a part of. It was stunning. We got it done just before the snow started flying. And there's basically 3 brand new golf holes that were Ross inspired, that we did as part of the project. All the greens, all the bunkers, most of the tees, and so a huge project. And it opened, and on opening day they had the news cameras out. It was a big deal in Rochester. I was so nervous. I was hitting my 3-wood halfway decent, so I said, I'll hit 3 woods off the first tee, right out of bounds. So that was that part. And look, the members played it. We've had the J.R. Williams a couple times, and the members liked the golf course, and it was tough. But I really didn't know what the professionals would say or what the golf world would say. No one had really seen it on a grand stage. So leading into the championship in May, I decided to take the entire week and go up and just try to soak it in. I don't have another major until 2030 with the PGA Championship at Congressional. So I was like, heck, I'm going to be around. I better go enjoy this. So I was really uptight, severely uptight. I drove by myself from Northern Maryland up 5 hours. And the entire way, all I could think about was awfulizing things. In the spring, I had nightmares that Tiger Woods would twist his leg or something and I'd injure him on my golf course. But at Augusta, get it up. hurt himself. Anyways.
Took care of that.
Yeah, I just so uptight. Well, my brother met me, and he could tell I was pretty wound up. And then I had to do some interviews that evening, and we were walking through the golf course, and Paul McKinley, who was on the Golf Channel, that one of the panels, he was out there, and I introduced myself. And, oh, Andrew, this is phenomenal! This is just great! And it was just like everything just calmed down a little bit. But I was really waiting for Brandon Shannon to attack me about tree removal. Figured that was coming.
I don't think that came up, did it?
No, a little bit.
Well, the golf course is better for it. I mean, Brooks capped up 3 under. How do you feel the golf course played that week, and were you satisfied with what you saw?
Yeah, so I've become friendly with a number of players, and so I kind of gave some feedback through the week of where things were. It was very interesting. I mean, number 6 was a very long par 4, and a lot of players were struggling with it. It was designed to be very hard, very demanding. And so it was very interesting from their perspective about sight lines and where they felt comfortable hitting a tee ball. And some of the players were like, I know exactly where to hit it. I hit it right here and I'm good. Some of the players were like, it really is making it tough for me to see the shape of the shot. So there were some really interesting things like on a smaller level there. They would have put a statue of me on the entry drive if the winner had been plus 10. I mean,
Was this a deal you worked out?
oh no. Well, they wanted it hard, and during our construction period, there were times where it was like, Andrew, if you could make the bunker a foot deeper, make it 2 feet deeper. Sadistic. At the same time, look, we made it more playable. We added forward tees, we widened approaches, we did a lot of other things, but they wanted it very hard. So when the winner came in at that score, that was a test. The membership was very proud of that. But the reality is that Oak Hill and the members had taken a lot of shots over the years. Nicholas at one point said, we've got 2 great golf courses here, one Fazio and one Ross. There've been a lot of disparaging things said. And a lot of things said that, they'd only done this or that to chase the championship or whatever, gallery flow. And the pride in the members' faces on the 18th green during the trophy presentation about how well the course showed, that was like a true win for me. I didn't care about anything else, but to see them have well-deserved pride in their place was just a highlight.
That's got to make it all worthwhile. That's got to be a special feeling.
It was so good. And the craziest thing that had just happened before that was Victor Hovland and I are probably as friendly as any player on tour. I text him often. And I shook his hand on Saturday afternoon, made birdie to get in the final round. And then he hits it in the bunker at 16 and leaves it in the lip. That was heartbreaking.
It's all your fault.
It took me until Wednesday to get up the courage to apologize. But he had a great attitude. He actually said, Andrew, I'm playing so great. My game's come so far. It's going to happen for me. And then he won the Memorial 2-3 weeks later. It was great.
Pretty special stuff. Had to be a great week. And congratulations on all the successes there. It's very special stuff. And as a friend and somebody who's known you a long time, it was pretty special to see all that. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room feel the same way. Hey, I know that guy on TV. This guy's been in the meeting room before.
Yeah, it was great. It was so good. Just a couple other things. My brother was there the whole week, which was very special. I had 2 college buddies up for a couple days. I had my team up for a few days, and then my wife and 3 kids came up with my mom, and we shared the weekend together. And memories for a lifetime.
What makes it all worthwhile. Well, we've heard a lot about what you're up to, but obviously one of the real reasons why we're here tonight is to talk a little bit about Bitter. I guess we should make some time for Bitter. Please. We did a little ride around before we came over, so we got a chance to tour the golf course. Gave Andrew a little inspiration today for Dick Wilson, for Bitterman. We looked at how our project has been maturing, over the last few months. It's seen a lot of things, as many in this room are aware. Dry spring, very dry spring, record dry. And very wet second half of the year from June up until now. It's handled it all pretty well. But let's get into some of the nuance of the project. But I guess first of all, tell us what you thought about what you saw today.
Yeah, it's so special. I mean, everybody, you're not here in this room tonight unless you know how special your place is, but it is just phenomenal. And when we started back in 2006, our whole objective was just to protect it and enhance it where we could and address any issues you had. We did a substantial amount of work, right? But we didn't complete the vision. And driving around tonight, it's like an aha moment of we've completed the vision. We have polished this amazing gem to this great shine. And thank you to all of you for your commitment to that. And Pat, you and your team, you're making me look really good. It's phenomenal out there.
I'm getting kind of used to it.
No, it's so good. There's a level of sophistication, a level of simplicity at the same time. And, I think the people that come experience it that aren't that familiar with it just talk about this amazing connection to nature. And the golf course is laid on the ground about as well as you could ever hope or imagine. And it is this amazing oasis of the intersection of the game and nature. Yeah, it's awesome.
We touched on that the last time we had this sort of talk, and how Wilson laid out this golf course in such a manner that he used the property to his advantage. And really, as you described it, your job going forward was just to enhance what was there, make it playable for today's game. Our project took on a few different phases. The first one that we encountered was tee construction and resurfacing of the tees. A lot of forward team space was added, some championship team space, and also some flexibility in our existing tee space. Just key us in on some of the vision behind some of those team locations.
Yeah, I think, originally it was a very simple set of tees that were part of the original design. It was more of a typical Wilson kind of runway setup, and markers were just separated by, however many paces would fit on that landform. And then I think there was a period of time where there were maybe a few pet tees here or there, right, that were added at times and kind of undersized. And then there were 4 tees kind of placed here or there, but kind of a little haphazard, maybe not the best positions for really the people utilizing it. So really our whole objective was to try to get the tees in the best position, try to give you the best, most consistent set of tees possible, allow a lot of accessibility, but don't waste effort. Moving tee markers around, that was one of my first jobs, and it can get cumbersome if there's too much. So I just think there's a really nice combination. There's a lot of flexibility. I really feel like tees are like a canvas, and I'll let you paint the picture. If you want to set them up longer, shorter, depending on if it's wet, dry, what events might be there. The variety is really what we're striving for. And I know that, a combination of the 4 tees, trying to blend them in the landscape, but make sure they're in good positions, was a huge thing. Additional tee space on a hole like number 4 was mission critical. And then the craziness that ensued on 15 and 9, making sure that those blended in, that you really couldn't tell.
Talk about those quite a bit.
Yeah, it was just an opportunity to really respond to the modern game and the changes, and to, it's nice to see the membership having, younger players that want a little more challenge, a little more distance, and be able to give them that without harming the fabric of the course.
I think you hit the nail on the head. We've certainly seen a fair number of guests and folks that haven't visited the course in the last 4 or 5 years. I know I've received some comments recently. They didn't know we did new tees because the tees fit into the landscape so well. And I think it's a testament to your artistic ability, your placement, and what you can do for the flexibility of the game. I mean, you have to go far and wide to find somewhere with as much team space flexibility as we have in the way in which we can set up the golf course. It's pretty special.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, heck, it's a testament to you guys too, to all the hard work that you put into it. Again, I think it was just another layer of polish. You know, it wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, but it was to try to give you things that were functional and flexible.
Absolutely. So the tees were obviously a great portion of this transformation. We also made some grass line adjustments. We widened approaches, we widened some fairways, specifically landing areas. We took some of the quote-unquote wiggles out of the fairways. Give us a little insight to your philosophy on grassy lines.
Yeah, they should, number one, they should mimic the landscape. They should showcase it. So the native lines and the fairway lines should be placed in a manner that helps highlight the highs and lows and the twists and turns of the topography. So when you get these long vistas across the ground, you can start to see how they intersect. And actually, the more width you can create, the more variety you have, the more playability you have. And by placing the hazards in the way that Dick Wilson really had embraced, you can have width and challenge at the same time, which is a beautiful thing. I think hole number 3 is a great example. You really want to play next to those bunkers on the right because the ball is working its way to the left. But you can play away from them, but there's a potential penalty for that. So, you know, those are very interesting. You know, the reality is that in 2008 and or around that time, that economic downturn, we had to make some decisions to try to save some dollars here or there, try to be as efficient as we could. And so we made some very tough decisions on changing some grassy lines that constricted the lines of play a bit. And so some of it was actually a reversal of that. Not that we were trying to be wasteful in any way, but that we wanted to make sure we embraced the design philosophies of Wilson. We showcased the topography. We made the golf course more enjoyable with greater variety. And then the wiggles. You know, fairway lines, there was a period of time, maybe in the 80s, or if you drew holes as a kid, or at some point in your life, you probably drew a fairway line and you're like, you know, curves are fun. They're fun to draw. I think that's why everybody's going to roundabouts, because highway engineers, you know, it's not fun. Anyway. I'll believe that. The fairway lines that do, like, they wiggle without merit, I think just frustrate me, because you can hit a ball down the edge of the fairway, and it hits in the fairway and then bounces into the rough. But heck, if the line had just gone straight, it would have stayed in the fairway. You know, and so I just, simpler is better.
I feel like that would have been something that Dick Wilson would have said.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You know, he was in a period of time where certainly there were some big mowers along the fairways, and so that kind of lent itself also to that level of simplicity.
I think one of the more special grass line adjustments out there. You know, we obviously have the expansion of the 10th approach and the 9th approach, but the one that catches everyone's eye is over by the first fairway pond intersection. There used to be a lot of rough between the fairway and the pond, and now there's only about 4 feet.
Yeah, don't hit it left. Or if you hit it left, hit it long.
I recall having that conversation out there when you were painting some lines. How close can we get?
Yeah.
It's like the architect.
You know, so granted, on a Dick Wilson drawing, you know, there's a certain scale that probably the lead of the pencil that he drew with 10 feet wide, so I'm not sure how. It's a little bit of architectural, artistic license, architectural license. No, look, the reality is golf is better when the pieces fit together. It's that simple. The closer the fairway is to the bunkers, the closer it is to the pond in this case, the more they intersect, the more your eye reads them as one complete package instead of separate pieces. And I think anytime you can connect the pieces, it's better. So, and often Wilson would draw, and his line would just intersect right into a bunker, or right into whatever, you know, was along the golf hole, whether it be green or whatever. Now, on one, we struggled for the longest time with drainage down there. So the improvements that we were able to make, the drainage, the pond bank, all of those things helped to allow us to get that fairway line out there.
The pieces of the puzzle, that's true words that never been spoken. And, we've talked about the tees, talked about the grass lines, two of three major components of this recent transformational project. The final and maybe the most eye-appealing and most eye-capturing would be the bunkers. The bunkers have taken on a whole new life, haven't they?
Yes.
I kind of feel like I got set up.
Never.
Look, you eat with your eyes, and the bunkers are certainly such a contrast when you stand on the tee or in the fairway that they're very important. And Dick Wilson was very good at maybe a combination of scaring you and enticing you at the same time with the bunkering. And so, the original vision when we did the project the first time was to try to embrace as much of that as possible, get the bunkers to dance in the landscape, and, allow it to enhance the experience. What I think we saw in just the evolution of the bunkers from 2006, certainly they lived a good life. They did. Meaning that they held up pretty well. But they had aged at the same time. So it was time to make a reinvestment. And I'm so thankful that the club made the decision to do it in a comprehensive fashion. Because the level of consistency with the bunkers was always a concern of mine. And so getting them all done at one time to a very high level is really exciting. And I think, again, talks about completing the picture for you all. So that was huge. There were a handful of bunkers that we tried to implement in-house, occasionally with more success than others.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, again, to get them to be more holistic and more of a complete picture is super important. And then when we went to install the hard liner, trying to get the bunkers to have additional dynamics as far as the depth, size, and collectability and challenge. And so, we worked to try to get them to be, bold isn't the right word, but bolder than they were. So I'm not, I still want them to be modest. They didn't need to be open. They didn't need to be 10 feet deep. They didn't need to, be two-stroke penalty. That's not the goal. But the goal was for them to be thoughtful and something that you had to be aware of. And then the reality of when you change out the sand and you do these things that you end up having to take a complete golf swing to get out of the, because the sand ages, the bounce of the club actually does more work for you when they're fresh. You really have to complete your swing. And I imagine you've noticed that. Any longer lessons. My two swing thoughts, just real quick, is think of a dollar bill under there, and you're trying to just put a dollar bill, and then make sure you complete your swing. Golf Digest, I need to. Sorry. But, the one concern I did have in that process was trying to make sure that we maintained accessibility, and there were a few bunkers that it became a little more challenging than others, but man, we worked our tail off to try to maintain that. And, I think we tried to find at least multiple areas for bunker to get in and out. Some of the smaller ones, maybe there's only one, but we really tried to keep that as part of the picture too. And then I think the enhancement of what we did, make them read in the landscape just a little better than the previous version.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The bunkers they stand out, and anybody who's been at the golf course can tell you that. And the way the sand plays is obviously different than the older stands that we've had in the past. The character and the characteristics of them, we talked about this during some of our visits or via text. The Andrew Green that we spoke about from 2006 has gone through some evolution. And approach the game and think about things a little bit differently. Again, maybe bold is not the right word, but more thoughtful, and maybe the confidence is there to be a little bit more aggressive.
Sure, yeah. But I really think it's also some of the tools that we're using now. You know, the mini excavator with the tilting bucket allows us to get a little more into the detail of a larger machine that we used the first time around. But then also trying to give the bunkers the proper amount of character without being overly aggressive.
Absolutely. Great point with the equipment. In 2006, I recall using a lot of skid steers and bulldozers at that time, where the majority of these bunkers now, they're built with mini excavators. And it's almost like the smaller, the better to make the floors dance, as you said.
Yeah, I think when it comes to just overall shaping, it allows us to have a higher level of detail. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the shapers have just become incredibly talented. Whether it's with McDonald and Sons or a different company like LeVar Golf Renovations, you probably worked with quite a few talented folks.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, for me, it's trying to unlock their passion, their artistic ability. So, you know, we sent some sketches back and forth and things, trying to, for me to put what I'm seeing in my head onto something that then they could respond to, and they did a beautiful job. Just thinking, you know, a couple of bunkers that just really proud of the work that we've done, not only as part of this, but then maybe a couple of years back, you know, the work on 6, shifting those bunkers around, losing the bike lines. It's just that awful. It's just awesome. It's dynamic. It's what it was meant to be from Wilson's perspective. You know, when we lost the silver maple on the inside of 15, getting that bunker in there, making it feel like it's always been there. The shapers did a really nice job with that. So just a couple of highlights.
Yeah, those are all excellent points. Within this project, there was only one bunker that was added on the golf course. There was a handful that were completely rebuilt. We'll start with the brand new bunker on the left side of 10 fairway. What was the vision?
Yeah, there were some notes back on Wilson's drawings about potentially embracing some of the original Devereaux Emmett bunkers. Everybody knows Emmett at a golf course there. So for those that might not, H.F. DuPont, his original golf course as far as Winter, it was designed by Devereaux Emmett, and the golf course kind of set where 9, 2, 8, 10, that space. So there were a couple bunkers that they thought about maybe incorporating into the design, or maybe, I can't remember, but I think they actually incorporated maybe for a period of time. They were kind of in that space on the left side of 10, and they'd gone away for a period of time. And so, or maybe they weren't there, I'm sorry, I can't exactly remember, but the thought was placing something into that hillside that makes the long player think. No matter what we did on the right side, we couldn't push that bunker far enough down the golf hole, even though, you know, the goal was to find some distance in the back that helped, but the topography wasn't allowing us to push the bunkers on the right any further because the ground falls away. So having that bunker out to the left now makes the longer player think, and hopefully from the proper tee, most of the average and shorter players aren't maybe quite getting there, or maybe just to it. And so then it creates this dynamic of kind of picking your line of play and your distance. And it helps separate out some of the visual dynamics of 2 and 10. I say 11, I'm sorry. 2 and 10. You play the same direction, and kind of gets them offset a little bit, which is nice. And then, yeah, certainly makes hopefully the players think a little more.
I think it certainly does, and the setup and the view on that hole from the tee now is absolutely incredible. It's that one bunker adds an extra layer to your thought process on the tee now. And with the flexibility within that tee and how we can set up the markers, we can pretty much do anything we want to make anybody think about their shot, whether we move the tee markers up, that bunker comes into play, or move them back, and, you know, it could be a layup. The next bunker would be, the next, I guess, set of bunkers would be number 3. They weren't new bunkers, but they were rebuilt. All together, a brand new bunker complex.
Yeah. When we first tried to do that work, it's probably a swing and a miss. We we were well intended, we had good imagery, but we just didn't quite execute as well as we should have. So I'll take any responsibility that I need to from that, but we're also trying to squeeze to make that happen. So having this opportunity to come back and make it purposeful and what the whole kind of asked for, and that was just a little shift, a little further down, just a little, and then stair-stepping them and making sure that they each felt supremely unique in a Wilson style was really nice. And I remember the first time looking at that whole way back when, there was a lot of there were a lot of vertical elements to the right of that hole that are no longer there.
Something like a few white pines or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, there were a few there. So just the native grasses, the corner there, and again, I think it's, whether you really know it or just inherently know it, when you stand on that third tee, just the magic of looking up that part of the course, the way the native area intersects, the way the bunkers sit, the way the hole twists, it's just, yeah. That section, I think the biggest improvements we've made recently is right through there. That 5, 3, 4, 6, 3, 4, 5, and 15. It's a really stunning part of the course.
I couldn't agree more. I have the pleasure of working at this property every single day. I say working, but I use that term loosely. But I still find that when I come up from the second green to the third tee, and you can look out over the middle section of the golf course, 3 through 7, it's always breathtaking. And it enhanced even further by this recent work. So the last bunker that wasn't totally rebuilt, but adjusted pretty favorably was the back greenside bunker on the 17th green. And I have a little insight into it, but I think this is better coming from you.
Yeah, that was one that always used to drive me nuts because I remember for a very long time, I don't sleep a lot. When I sleep well. But there's a period of time where bunker lines would keep me up at night. Silliest thing.
That's the artist in you.
Oh, and I probably lost maybe 2 weeks worth of sleep over that back bunker and the front bunker looking very mirror image-ish.
That's a lot of lost sleep.
Yeah. Bunker line, right? That probably, I'm not sure how many of you even thought that, or maybe you thought it was purposeful. So having that ability to go in and tweak that, just that they were differentiated, was huge, and then make sure the floor works well in that back position. That was a great improvement, at least for me. Thank you.
Mission accomplished back there. Yeah, it looks fantastic. I think one of the things that
Can I interrupt real quick just to go to 18 too, since that wasn't new in this project, it was the year before.
great point, Doc.
So if you're going.
The fairway bunkers on the 18th hole. This was maybe 2 springs ago, maybe even 3 at this point. That was a vast improvement over what the singular bunker was and what it became.
Thank God for that thunderstorm. I think 17 and 18 certainly have had their history. Most of you probably know the original holes played 17 from the short game area, then 18 from the back of the driving range straight. So trying to make those holes as good as we could, make them fit. The fairway bunkers on 18 were a huge part of trying to, again, kind of complete the vision and make sure that the challenge of that dog leg kind of fit the overall Wilson style. And the bunker that was on the inside there was probably a little bit out of place compared to, I guess, maybe what Wilson would have done. So, whole purpose there, great dog leg where you really can't shortchange it, especially with the native grass, was to make you pick a line and a distance again. And so it's not just a mindless, just let's hit it out there as far as I can hit it, but let's make sure it's off.
I know I left a lot of balls in the native, thanks to you.
Seeing a little more left.
Thank you for that. I didn't want to overlook one of the things, one of the perhaps major components of the T renovation. Just rewinding a little bit to this, the 11th T complex. We did some finding there, didn't we?
Yeah. I'm not sure, I don't know the exact evolution of how that T came to be, other than, the idea was to try to set it on the dam kind of structure. But boy, the tilt that was in that T, the slope that was in that, and then how uneven, it was in dire need of help. But it was actually, I used this word earlier, it was kind of, not, it was earlier, somewhere else, but it was kind of serendipitous in that we figured out the grades, we figured out how to make it work, we figured out, the walk up to the back right edge is a little steeper, but as long as you can come back to it, if you're playing the back tees, kind of park up or walk up around and challenge that slope if you're not able to walk up that. Really gave us tremendous flexibility to create something that looks like it's always been there. Supremely level, a little pitch to it. But yeah, just again, something that in polishing the consistency of the golf course was a huge thing that we needed to do.
The par threes at Bitterman are obviously very magical, and I think one of the biggest, I don't want to say knocks, but maybe, just the comment you hear most often is that you could go up to any of the par threes and pull the same club, and you'd probably be pretty darn close. 11 gave us that flexibility to have a short par three, and you said it was perfect because that green can be a bit severe at times. So I think we can get down to about 120, 125 on that with that tee set up now. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's par threes are the one place as an architect that I can kind of force you to place a shot. Otherwise, you hit driver, and wherever you find a golf ball, that's what you're left with. So anytime we can add flexibility in par threes is huge. And again, the combination of drainage, the pond work, and the tee improvements there is just a huge win.
Yeah, the 11th hole was certainly transformed from what it was a year ago at this time. So, we've talked about a lot of things with our recent renovation work, bunkers and tees and grasslands. When we were getting close to the conclusion of this phase of our project, we had a conversation about all the renovations that are going on in the United States, well, even worldwide. You're involved in, others are involved in. Scale us. Where were we? How did we rank? Well, where did our renovation fall?
Yeah, I think the comment I made too is it was the smartest renovation I'd seen in a long time. And what I meant by that is you touched the things that were in most need of repair. You found a level of consistency that the club, in my mind, deserved, and you did it all with a shared ownership and pride of your team, contractor, working together to maximize every dollar spent. And construction costs have gotten kind of out of control, and it was beautiful to see the quality of work, the end result, and having that all come together in such a magnificent way. So again, testament to you and your team, a testament to the membership for making the commitment to doing it, and then making sure that you were doing things very well and in a smart way. It's great.
It's group effort, team effort, as we like to say, that you obviously spearheaded the planning, the ideas, and got us to that point. And we had talked about it for the entirety of 2022, and when the decision was laid out, it was a quick adjustment to mobilize, and it all happened very quickly. So it was a pretty special time in not only my professional career, but for the history of this club as well. So we're staring down the barrel, or should I say HDPE pipe, of a new irrigation system. You saw some of the activity out there today. Your philosophy on coursework, versus irrigation system. You know, we were at that critical threshold of replacing our system, but also at that critical threshold of what are we going to do with these things on the golf course that are aging out. So we had a long conversation about that over a year ago, and you gave some really good insight there.
Yeah, I'm glad to remember what I said. No, look, the reality is my old boss, Chip McConnell, who I was working with when I did this project in 2006, but he always said, why do you want to do irrigation? It's so boring. All you do is dig a hole and put a pipe in and bury it. That's not fun. Well, the reality is you need an irrigation system. Right? It is the heart of a golf course. Now, the key is to put it in with either foresight of potential adjustments or do it the way you've done it, where you've made the proper adjustments to tees, bunkers, and greens. You've done all the things that now when you install the irrigation, you know it's going in the right spot. And even if there are a handful of things that we might do in the future, there's enough flexibility to know that you can't put a main line here or there to allow for that flexibility. So just perfect. The biggest struggle for me with irrigation is it's so expensive that it's a big commitment, but it's a 25 to 30 year commitment minimally. You know, that's about what we're seeing as the lifespan. So basically, the way I'm looking at this is the commitment you've just made to the golf course and the irrigation system is a generational commitment, meaning that all the folks in this room will get to enjoy it for a long time, but you've really left it in position for the next generation to pick up the baton and carry it forward. And the irrigation system is a big part of it.
It's pretty special stuff. You know, it is a unique time. It's an awesome time to watch all this happen, be at the forefront of all of it happening. And, transformational projects in the golf course don't come around all that often. As you said, it's generational, and it's a very special time to be a member at Bitterman, but also be a part of the professional team here at Bitterman. So I hope that you feel the same way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Look, I'm so thrilled to be a part of the team here. And as I've told you, the key is pick up the phone or call me if you need something, and I'll be here. Like I'm here tonight. You all do mean a lot to me. Your course means a lot to me. It taught me a lot of valuable lessons, and it is just a magical place to enjoy the game. And I think that's the number one thing. I don't care about anything else, but to have a golf course that inspires you to play golf, to be a part of it, that's perfection.
Couldn't have said it better. I think we've said it all.
Okay.
I think we've said it all. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the floor out here for any questions that we may have. I see Mr. Silverman.
I have an observation, and actually, you'll indulge me 3 short questions.
Okay.
Observation. As somebody who has finally made the accommodation to his birth certificate and all the fake parts in his body and moved up to the forward tees, I have to tell you, this is the first set of forward tees I've ever played on that are actually challenging. I mean, they are thoughtful, they are not afterthoughts, and I want to just thank you for that. Question. Rochester. I think people who know Rochester know that probably the worst course in Rochester was Oak Hill. It had been so destroyed by everybody over time, and yet right next to it was a beautiful Donald Ross course at Oak Hill. Across the street was Country Club of Rochester, a fabulous Donald Ross course, and then you had 4 or 5 others. How much of those courses did you tour and look at and use as inspirations of what you could bring back? Because you saw plans, but plans are one-dimensional, and the golf course is 3-dimensional.
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. So people have said, well, Andrew, I guess now you're the Donald Ross expert. And I said, well, that's very kind, but I want to be the Oak Hill expert. I want to be the Moisted expert. I want to be the Scioto expert. I want to be the Bitterman expert. I don't want to be the Ross expert. And why I say that is because he did a lot of work, 400 courses or so. And I think it does him a disservice if you say that he did something here or there, and we should totally apply that to the next spot. Now, that's not to say that there's not things that you could learn from all those places that he worked. But we were very purposeful in trying to keep to the information we had for the East, and we just filled in gaps where we needed to. So there really wasn't a lot of back and forth. In fact, the West course on the same piece of ground, yes, it's been monkeyed with a little bit, but the drawings that Ross did were different on the West than the East. And there were notes on the West that were different than the East. And so there's some lore about that he wanted them to be able to be played in an interchange manner. And certainly that there was some ability for that. But I think there was some purposefulness to the way he designed it, and that's the direction we went.
So, second question. Which, I don't know if the word is more challenging, more fun, more intriguing to you as an architect, is to go to a place like Oak Hill, which needs a ton of work, or to come to a place like this, where you've got to think in more subtle ways?
Yeah, great question. So those of you that might not know, when I was a junior in high school, this is what I wanted to do. And I went to Virginia Tech and met with some folks, and one of the guys I met with was the head of, ended up becoming the head of the landscape architecture department. He was a professor there. And he said to me, Andrew, you're never going to be able to do this. He goes, I appreciate that this is something that you like and have a passion for, but your dad's not a famous golfer. You don't have a famous last name. You're not a great player. You know, this is it's just reality.
Not bad.
Look, I appreciated that he was honest. And in fact, he actually worked as an golf course architect in Chicago for a period of time. I think he got a little cheated, actually, reflecting on it. But another thing that he said to me is, I caution you against pursuing this because it is the same design problem every day. Okay. Does that mean that you have, traditionally there are 18 holes? Is that? I will tell you that never a single day in my career of now 23 years have I ever thought that. And so the beauty of what I've been able to do and what I've been blessed to do is that going from project to project is a totally different set of design circumstances. And I've had a lot of fun trying to find what's the best fit for those design circumstances. And so I have just as much fun, with more of a specific direction and maybe a smaller footprint as I do when it's Andrew, do whatever you want to do. It's just different.
So let's talk about Andrew, do what you want to do. Final question, I promise I'll share it. You have gotten yourself in just a few years into the company of conversation with Corin Crenshaw, Gillen, and Jim Wagner, and Tom Doak. Pretty heady company. I trust that you are on the verge of starting to do your own stuff. I'm not going to ask you what we will see out there when you do it, because that will all depend on what kind of land you're given. But what will you make sure that we as golfers have?
Yeah, great question. Actually, last week we signed some agreements to build 2 new original courses.
Oh, great.
So
where will they be?
Yeah, one's in Tennessee and one's in the Midwest. That's about as specific as I can get at the moment. And looking at football and a number of others. And here's what you're going to get. You're going to get, my goal is to provide the best set of par threes I can possibly build. And it goes back to that thing that's the place I could really kind of ask you different questions. 4 specific questions. Those are 4 I know I can ask. Which means often I'm trying to get them to all play in different directions so that if the wind blowing, that plays into the equation. You're going to get golf balls that fit the ground or are sitting on ground that is supremely unique. And I promise you I will not put a bulldozer on a piece of ground to sterilize it. been too much of that. So not necessarily, minimalist, yes, but more old school. And then the greatest compliment I can ever get in any project is, man, we had a lot of fun. So they're gonna be fun.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gray?
So I complimented you on the work on 9 and 15. It's extraordinary. But this has always been a golf course that we aspired for the course to be enjoyed by people of all levels. Talk a little bit about the project and how you feel it shined for the people that are playing the back tees, the people that are playing the regular blue tees, and the people that play the forward tees. How does that show up in terms of their enjoyment from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm always thinking about it in a couple different, they all end up playing together in the same thing. This is the way I look at it. I want the longest, best players in any club, your veteran especially. I want the longest players to have the ability to challenge themselves as much as they care to. Often back team players won't play all the way back, but on a handful of times. If they're playing on the weekend, people probably end up playing up some. And that's a lesson for all of us. We should all play up some. But so for the best players, a level of challenge. For the shortest players, beginners, those of us that we're just trying to enjoy the game, that's all I really want you to enjoy the game. Now I want to be thoughtful. I want the tees to be in the proper position. I want you to think your way around the golf course still, but I want you to have a tremendous amount of enjoyment. For everybody in the middle, I want you to have a lot of variety. And I think that's a testament not only to the way Wilson routed Bitterman, but then also what we've tried to do with bunker positions and things is to make it where you never feel like you're playing the same hole twice. And I can't think of 2 shots that are the same on your course. It's really good at that. So those are always in the back of my mind. I think the things that we've done over the years since 2006 that are important, the approaches, trying to maintain width where we could, trying to bounce the ball in, trying to eliminate some of the back bunkers in places to make it a little more forgiving if you bounce the ball through the green. And then moving fairway bunkers to the long landing zone on a number of occasions where we could, so that the shorter player had a little more room, and the longer player was more challenged.
Well, what this man asked, the spectrum of tee length, wasn't that something that Dick Wilson really featured? I mean, I've studied the history of golf course architecture, and coming out of the golden age into the modern age, which was Robert Trent Jones and Dick Wilson, basically the two of them.
It was.
They just got things way longer than it had ever been before. I think one of the reasons for that is the ratings were very close connecting with total yardage. So they just would build longer to get up on the ratings. But he really was special, wasn't he, on the diversity of, special from almost any architect, I would think, the diversity of tee length on the ball, wasn't he?
He was, and that was a bit of a testament to William Flynn, who's a Philadelphia, kind of, not really native, because he was born in Massachusetts, but anyways, he's a Philly guy. Flynn wrote exclusively about alternate tees. He was one of the first in the golden age to really profess that, and then Wilson came from that tree. The big thing, Wilson, he had these long runway tees that also RTJ, they did a number of them as well. It worked really well at like Pine Tree.
Yes.
It's harder at Bitterman where there's topography to get quite that much diversity.
Interesting, okay.
But anywhere that you could get that, certainly, not only was that something that's part of your founding vision, but also something we tried to work.
So I don't know how long the course was when he designed it and drew it, but if he didn't, did he sort of incorporate plenty of elasticity behind as best he could, given the difficulty of the topography, do you think, or not? Or did he max it out right off the bat?
It's a a great question.
Do you-
Yeah, I think, like, I don't think he was necessarily thinking about that back tee that we placed on 9. You know, he was thinking about that the high point that the main tee sits on was a good distance to the turn of the dog leg. But I'm not sure he was thinking that anybody would be hitting it 300 yards on a regular
Right.
basis.
Yeah, yeah.
And the topography really didn't lend itself to, both the topography of the landing zone and the topography of the tee didn't lend itself to have a longer runway when he built it.
Well, thank you, and I know about his relationship with William Flynn, because I helped write the first biography of William Flynn with Wayne Morrison.
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah. Thank you.
He's
Good
the
job.
man. He's my spirit animal. Wait,
Any other questions?
What's going to happen in terms of lengths of technology and people being able to hit the ball and golf course design and the controversy that there is there? What's if we were going to be sitting here 10 years from now? What would the solution become? Because I know the ball may be one solution, but how long are courses going to have to ultimately be, and what is that future going to be? Or how do you build in enough complexity so that people can hit it that far, still have a challenge?
I've been tempted to release my manifesto on this, but I'm not sure it's a win for him. So I'll share some just honest thoughts. The first is back to William Flynn. He wrote, if the powers that be do not get control of what he called the elusive piddle, that golf courses would end up being 80,000 yards or longer. And this is in I think it's September of 1927. He wrote that.
That's right.
And then he continued to say that for every yard is another dollar out of the golfer's pocket because it's another acre of ground that has to be maintained. Very, very smart. Here we are 100 years later still having this stupid conversation. And C.B. McDonald wrote about the ball, Alistair McKenzie wrote about the ball. Now, granted, some of this was feathery, kind of percha, and all of, some of the other dynamics of the game. Here's where I land. I understand the economic pressure of the equipment companies to maintain distance. I understand that the PGA Tour player wants to hit the ball long and straight. I get it. But Oak Hill is as long as I can get the golf course unless they buy houses and tear them down. And for me, the game I grew up with, and maybe that makes me sound like an old curmudgeon, but the game that I grew up with included thoughtful swings with a longer club in your hand. And when you look at the tour and what they say DJ, maybe that's before he went to live, but I think DJ or some of those guys were hitting 6-iron like a handful of times in the entire year. The reason I want a par 3 to play 250 or 270 yards for those guys is because they never stand over the ball and are nervous to hit a hybrid. The only time they're hitting hybrids on a par 5 trying to get home in 2. How many times have you hit a hybrid standing over? Right? It's different. So I would love to see them have that challenge. How many of you buy a dozen golf balls on the 1st of April and never buy another golf ball before the next April?
No, I just don't catch every shot.
In my mind, if you make it golf balls, everybody in this room is going to buy them. Right?
Yeah.
I don't care how long they go. But it's a lot easier, a lot cheaper, and a lot better for the game if we all moved up a tee and sacrificed a little bit of distance.
To your point about distance, at the 2013 Open at Marion, holes 7 through 13 were the hardest holes for the pros to play. Their numbers were worse there than anywhere else in the course. They cannot play 305-yard holes. They don't have the ability, they can't think about the idea of, do I ratchet it back, do I go for it? And they're in trouble all over the place. If you have to make a decision, you're in trouble. And that's your job, to make decisions.
Well, so, just real quick back to that, I never want to take the game away from someone. It's hard. I want it to be as enjoyable for us in this room as possible. So I'm not trying to make it harder for us. But I do think there is a way, even if we just straight up on distance, if we think about that in a more thoughtful manner and make a few sacrifices, or some people in the game make a few sacrifices for the betterment of the game, I think that's something to consider. And then the last part of it is the darn club head is so big. The driver's the easiest club head in the bag now. And I'm sure, looking around the room, I think everybody that learned the game at a younger age in the room, it used to be the complete opposite. So there's a number of things, but I made a very nice living by making golf courses longer and harder. Okay? But I'm not sure, that's not sustainable. At some point, it's just not.
So, two questions. The first is, what were your kind of hardest decisions on the course at Bitterman? What were your most difficult thought on what you're going to do? And then, kind of an unrelated question, how do you think you've evolved and how have you changed over the last 25 years on your philosophy or your approach to courses?
Yeah, great question. Well, I told you I lost a lot of sleep over that one. Can't go back, yeah.
That one you knew you were going to do, but I guess
I got
question.
Number seven green. There's rock under that back half that we really couldn't touch. So it was whatever we could do to make that green as functional as possible. And I know it's demanding still, especially if you're on the wrong level. But that really limited what we could do. That was a tough one, for sure. What have I learned? I mean, so much.
What have you changed? What have you
Yeah.
changed last year as an architect? From when we
I think when it comes to the kind of work that we've done here, I think this probably, again, taught me more, not like learning lessons on the fly, but it taught me the research, the becoming the expert on the club, understanding why and how things came to be, to then understand how to work towards the future and make it fit. That was a huge part of this. Now, as far as how that has changed or evolved, one of the biggest things that I've really come to appreciate are greens of different shapes and sizes. It never really resonated, I don't know, it resonated, but it really is connected a lot in the last maybe 5 to 10 years of how important it is to have greens where hole locations make the golf hole play differently. And Wilson did a nice job with that with some of his shapes. But the goal is a back right hole location and a front left, kind of make it play the golf hole differently, so that as you're setting up the golf course and day in and day out playing the golf course, you play in it a couple times a week or a couple times a month. That every time you play it, it's engaging and different. Those are a couple things that I've really experienced.
Just as an aside, that was one of the reasons that you got this job originally, was you had done more research than anyone by far and really understood who Wilson was and explained to us and talked about him in depth more than anybody else.
Yeah, and I still do that. Even we're working at Shoal Creek right now, and so that was a Nicholas design, and there were a lot of questions about how are you going to embrace that. And we actually found hot cup drawings from 1976 that actually had a lot of interesting dynamics that we were able to draw.
One of the obvious variables here is the golf ball itself. Now, couldn't we put in some kind of rule that controls the ball? We don't have to hit the damn thing 500 yards anymore. It changes everything.
It does.
And why don't we do that? This seems like such an obvious thing that would save a lot of work from a lot of people. And literally true. So they should have an opinion about a golf ball. This is the standard, that's the quality. Why don't we do that? Well, you could save a lot of dollars.
Yeah, but it's unfortunately
golf balls are much better than others. There's a difference in the way that they'll fly, all that kind of stuff. How do we do that?
The day that the USGA released its preliminary findings with 10% rollback, I had an incredibly heated discussion with the Titleist ambassador.
Okay.
Well, if they had a ball just for the majors, okay? Just for the majors, called it the majors golf ball, okay? And every one of these major golf balls, and every company could make one, had, you know, MGB on it. Wouldn't we all buy one to just see how we do with it?
Yeah. It doesn't happen with tennis, does it? They keep the same.
Exactly.
That doesn't affect me.
Where do you come out on recommending firm and fast, particularly with this golf course? It seems to me that this is really interesting. I mean, some places it really promotes it, other places you don't want to go there, you know.
Yeah.
Shallow green, shallow side to it. That's why I think the architecture here is so cool. You know, you got to really read through it. Where do you come out on promoting firm and fast for this course?
Well, I think the reality is in every part of the country or every part of the world, the conditions in Mother Nature determine so much.
Sure.
And sometimes we put undue pressure or unrealistic expectations on the maintenance team to do something that this Mother Nature won't allow. My big thing is I want it as firm and fast around the putting surface so that you can bounce the ball in. The ground game is supremely important in the approach. So anything you can do to promote that.
So more third shots.
Yeah, or three.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's huge. Fairway firm and fast is phenomenal, but there are a lot of us that can't play off of that. And there's probably a plus minus of helping control the ball a bit instead of letting it run all over the place. My favorite place to play golf in the world is in Scotland or England when it's dry. It is so much fun. It is ridiculous how much fun. But the reality is that's not everywhere in the United States. We can't ask that. So I tend to say as firm and as fast as you possibly can get it, given Mother Nature. We install a lot of drainage and do a lot of practices in the approaches to try to allow the ball to bounce in. The most frustrating thing in the world is to hit a shot and expect it to bounce and it just stops. It's not good. But I love it. It's just sometimes check that. All the time, there is the ideal and there's reality.
Sure.
We always want to pursue the ideal, but we have to understand reality. That's just.
Thank you.
Oh, I would just say one thing. I got the pleasure of getting to know Andrew fairly well back in 2013 and 2015. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and it's always great every time we get to see him. We worked on the putting green and the chip. It's been nothing but great. But as it relates to practice facilities and things like that, how much are you doing today when you come in and redo and bring a golf course up to standards with practice facilities, especially with so many old courses have limited space?
Great question. So a couple things there. I had a golf course owner challenge me about 2 years ago now. I don't think I said this last time. I don't think it did. He said, Andrew, hold on a second. You're telling me I need to design a driving range tee that will hold a 325-yard drive, and there are 3 people at this entire club that can hit it. It's a great point. You know, the difference between Overbrook's driving range, where you hit it 220 into a net, and it's another one here. I mean, even your range, right? You can get into the trees in the back, but hit a long ways. That's a big difference. So I have become less stressed about finding a 300-yard driving range at historic clubs that are at tight spaces. And I'm very hesitant and would tell you to never destroy your golf course in pursuit of that. Now, if you can solve issues and find space and do things that add value, Yes. But don't move 6 holes to get 30 more yards of distance on your driving range. That's lunacy. Okay. As far as practice goes, it is the single best memory utilization tool that we have. And so finding ways to enhance short game practice, putting, driving range, whatever, is a huge benefit. But you don't want to be silly about it. And then also, you don't want to say, well, we need this, and we need this. But to have those things, each one is less than what it could be maybe without sacrificing one. And then having an intelligent conversation about, look, we can have an first class driving range that does everything, has lots of grass space, lots of places for the grass to recover, or we can have a massive short game area, and we have to be on mats on the range, then we have to have that conversation. And so there's some clubs where that is very important. And for you here at Bitterman, I think enhancing the original 17th green and making that a better short game area would be a huge benefit, and it wouldn't cost you valuable real estate. There's space there to enhance what you have, or whatever it is. Yes.
So Pat mentioned the third tee. It's impossible to walk on this golf course and walk up to that third tee and not know you're in a special place. It's just phenomenal. The balance of aesthetics, playability, and conditioning of this golf course is just incredible and wonderful. So thank you, congratulations to what you have accomplished. I'm wondering, do you have a couple favorite holes, whether it be design elements, whether it be aesthetic elements, whether it be playability? Do you have a couple favorite holes out there that as you went around it, you go, man, I just love this hole.
They're all my favorite.
I know, they're all your children. I will not ask you, at least.
No. Look, I think the handful or progression of tweaks that we made on 15 really has elevated that to, go from whatever amateur, bear with me. Golf is the only game defined by the ground on which it's played. And what makes golf unique is that from course to course, the ground is different. And how the ground is utilized makes that experience different. Standing on the 15th tee, looking all the way to 16 now, that's your Pacific Ocean of Cypress Point up. It's phenomenal. No one else has that. So that area is really, really nice. And then, 6, I think, has just come such a long ways. If you remember the white pines and how cut off that view was, that's really powerful golf. And actually, on this most simple part of ground you have on the entire golf course, it's the flattest piece of ground. What Wilson envisioned there was perfect. Those are cool.
Thank you. For the record, I need a golf ball that goes 20 yards further. just
Sure. Be happy to take 1 or 2 more questions for Andrew.
I just have one right here. Andrew, this is probably more of a career-oriented question, but so during the PGA, when you were there at Oak Hill that week, how on did you have to be? Were you able to enjoy that as a fan, albeit maybe with a little bit better colored badge than everybody else, or were you really just working that whole time?
Great question. A couple of little stories. Monday, Tuesday, I don't know if there weren't a lot of whispers. There were a lot of those towards the end of the week, which is weird and I guess cool to a certain point. My college buddies got me in a little bit of trouble on Wednesday afternoon with Cutwater margaritas. So I was well in control. I didn't need to be on then. We had some fun. My kids, I have 3 kids. My 2 youngest were really into it. My oldest was kind of thought it was whatever. But we did a couple cool things that was just fun and a combination of being on and enjoying it. My little guy plays football. We got to hang out with Von Miller from the Bills. That was really cool. And then we walked down the putting green. I had to go see the golf professional about something, and we walked down, and all the kids lined up for autographs, started yelling my name. Mr. Green, what's up, my flag? My kids were like, man, what's this? And then they're like, Mr. Green's son, come son.
Yeah. Awesome.
It was
Outstanding. Well, Andrew, can't thank you enough for your time this evening. On behalf of our membership and professional staff, thanks for all you do for this club. It's very special. As we can all tell, Andrew's personality and approach to the game of golf is also very special. How he handles himself is just incredible. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Come join us tonight. Thanks to all of you for your participation. Yes, Mr. Green.
So I just want to recognize, back in 2006, when you first presented your vision, you were the most prepared person of anybody, hands down. And the work that you produced was phenomenal. After many, many years of countless successes, I am grateful, and I think our members are grateful, that you continue to hold this place as close as you do, and that you continue to work with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You all always be a special part of my journey and who I am. And thank you for your support, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. So, thanks.
Thanks so much.